and welcome to another episode of the Happy Head podcast. Now, look, I keep saying this. If you don't know my name by now, shame on you. Well, not really. I'm Paul. Yeah. Today, I'm joined by the lovely Sarah. Hi, Sarah. How are you doing?
Hi there, Paul. Great, thank you.
Now, we probably spent more time chatting before hitting the record button than anybody else, because we've been talking about a whole range of things, including my skills as a hypnotist, and just showed a little trick there beforehand. So this conversation could go anywhere, so be prepared. So by the way, before you even kick off, I love your cheese plant in the background there, or whatever it's called, spider plant.
So it's a spider plant. I got this from the garden centre about 18 months ago, and it cost me about £2. It was a little smudge of a tiny little baby plant, and now it's absolutely massive, and I've got 10 babies off it already, and there's loads of little spiderettes hanging down. I'm so proud of it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I got one just behind my camera here, and I just love the things because they're so easy to grow. Now, you hold probably a world record as the only person on the planet who's only done 2 Zoom meetings in lockdown.
That's right. Yeah. I seem to have just completely got away with it. It helps that I'm a stay-at-home mum. I don't have a job per se. So I don't have a specific need to go and chat to people, really. I suppose just if I would like to have a meeting with somebody, I can, but I'm not under any obligation to.
It's everybody I speak to is just so sick of doing online stuff as opposed to meeting people. But again, before we started recording, you and I both agreed that we're both social people and we love to interact with people, and we're both kind of missing that ability to get out. I mean, I do it in coffee shops and pubs, Sunday lunch, that kind of thing. But that interaction I really miss, which is why actually, although a lot of people are getting sick and tired of Zoom, I love it because it gives me the opportunity to have conversations like this.
Yeah, absolutely. I always knew I was a very social person when I was younger, and in my 20s, I'd describe myself as a social butterfly. But I suppose as I've got older, and especially now in this lockdown, I never realised how vital it was for my survival that I had these social interactions. And when they all got cut away when we went into lockdown a year ago, I was really struggling just to get through the day. I know everyone was really, but I couldn't pinpoint exactly as to why it was that I was struggling. It took me a bit of time because everything changed in a very short space of time. So to kind of whittle that down and work out what is that one little bit that is making me unhappy, and filtering it out from all of the other sort of little floaty bits around the outside. What's that thing in the middle? I needed to identify that. And it was absolutely just social interaction. But it doesn't have to be a physical thing for me at all. Talking to you, when we're talking before you hit record and stuff, it doesn't matter if that person is in the room with me physically, or if I'm just chatting to them on a video call, or if it's on the phone, anything. I need that. And as I said before, my other half, Adam, doesn't require that at all. He could go on for months and months on end, only ever seeing me or nobody, and he'll be fine. It doesn't seem to impact him at all. And that's something I'll never understand, because I'm so the opposite of that. I love getting people's thoughts and opinions, and I love that I never know where a conversation's going to go and how it changes. A conversation is a bit like a dance. You can sway one way, then the other, and then the music changes, and you can suddenly sort of drift off on this lovely dance in a conversation. I just think it's magical.
Yeah, conversations are incredible. And to be honest with you, I've not had, prior to kind of starting this podcast, lots of really in-depth conversations that are like a dance, as you said. And it's just fabulous. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I set this thing up anyway, is because I can have conversations with people that I wouldn't normally get the opportunity to talk to. And it's a great way of kind of opening doors and saying, oh yeah, let's have a chat, Paul. It's brilliant. I just absolutely love it. It's great.
Yeah, I completely agree. Because I suppose without your podcast in this lockdown, you would just be talking to people that you already knew. So there's no way to kind of widen your social net really at the minute. There's social media. I did actually make a very random friend in lockdown. I was so lonely. I'd pinpointed the reason why I was upset, which was the social interaction. And I just thought, God, I need to speak to new people. All these people that are already in my phone book, they're old people. I'm not interested in them. I need new, fresh meat. So I went onto Facebook, which I don't really like. I'm not really a social media fan. But I went onto Facebook, and there's this local community in the town that I live in. And I just put up, are there any other mums out there that would like to meet up in a play park or something? My kids around this age and blah, blah, blah. And one person got back to me. And we are now very, very good friends, and we see each other a lot. We text every day. She's absolutely fantastic. So yeah, it was that freshness, that new person I needed. Need new, like a constant turnover of people to keep me engaged and interested.
A constant turnover of people. Wow. It's interesting because, like you say, you contrast with your husband, because he can go for months without seeing anyone. And it's interesting because I'm kind of halfway between both of you, in the sense that I live alone and I'm quite happy in my own company, but I do need to get out and meet people. That's why I said before recording about going to coffee shops and going down the pub for lunch and that kind of thing, because that's how I got out and met people, apart from my clients and stuff. And that was the biggest thing for me, being in these, lockdown 3 now, I think it is, not being able to go to a coffee shop, or not being able to go to a pub and have lunch and actually be able to interact with people. The only interaction now I get is in physical, is if I go to a supermarket and get to talk to a security guard and the till, it's really funny. I've seen lots and lots of posts about people saying it's the new guy now. Visit to the supermarket, and people joking about getting all dressed up and everything to go to the supermarket.
Yeah, well, yeah. I to be honest, I never used to chat a lot to people at the checkout at the supermarket. I found it a very sort of functional interaction. Now it's a social highlight of my week, and of a lot of people's weeks. There's a new person there. They're willing to talk to me. I'm willing to talk to them. It's not happened in so long. I chat to them about all sorts of things, and they probably just think, all right, love, time to move on. I've got a queue behind you. And I'm like chatting away. Yeah, exactly. Keep me out. Yeah.
Oh, dear. So we actually met in a group called Lightbulb, which is for journalists and entrepreneurs to kind of like pitch and request kind of things. And you put a post in there, didn't you, about a specific ad? Are you happy to talk about that? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, it was a very sort of spontaneous post. I got just got a sudden boost of courage, and I just thought, Sarah, just do it. So I thought I really wanted to talk about miscarriage, because there's quite a bit about it in the media and stuff at the minute. I know with sort of Meghan and Harry, they've had a miscarriage and they've been quite open about it, which I thought was fantastic. And on the back of that and the lockdown and the mental health side of things, I think now is a really, really lovely, poignant time to sort of start talking about that, because I know a lot of mental health taboos have been broken down a lot in recent years, which I think is absolutely fantastic. We're talking about it a lot more. Most of the TV channels now are running their own kind of mental health campaigns. ITV's running a big one, aren't they? I can't remember what it's called now. But yeah, it's something that maybe 5 years ago or so we wouldn't have spoken so openly about, but now I feel like the barriers are starting to break down a bit more. So I am 32 now and just about to turn 33, and I have had around 6 miscarriages. I can't say exactly how many, because to be honest, it gets to a point where you stop counting, because counting it is just, I don't want to know that number in my head. I don't want to be able to recall it and say, yeah, I know it's this many. I want to say, oh, it's probably around there by now. don't know, probably give or take, probably give a couple on top of that, to be honest. But as I've alluded to, I do have a child now. He's nearly 2. Well, no, he has just turned 2. And so I have had a successful pregnancy, which in a strange way makes the continuing miscarriages that I'm still having, makes them really hard to cope, because I don't get any kind of closure on them. There's no reason why they are happening. I've been to the doctors, I've had the tests and things like that, but because I can get pregnant quite easily, it just doesn't stay in there. So all the tests came back as negative. There's no real kind of medical known reason as to why they happen, which is a good thing, right, in a way, because I don't have a horrific disease or infection. There's nothing really wrong with me. There's my health is good. But it's also bad news when they say they can't find anything, because then you think, well, where do I turn to next? What's my next step going to be? How do I make this stop happening? And the truth is that you can't. You can't stop these things happening. I would love for Alfred to have a little brother or sister, and that would be fantastic. But if it happens, sort of thing. But I know so it's so common. It's like 1 in 4 is the official statistic about miscarriage. So 1 in 4 women will experience a miscarriage at some point or other in their life. And one of my best friends, we went to high school together. She's had, I always have this joke, she just seems to sail through life consequence free. And she has 3 kids. The first guy that she kind of met, she just fell in love with him and married him. They're just perfect. Everything just falls into place naturally for her all the time. And I'm so jealous. I love her to bits. But we always joke, because it gets to a point when you've had so many miscarriages, you can start to find them funny after a while. There's a dark humour that comes into play as it's a coping mechanism, right? Obviously, it's not funny at all. It's horrific, but you have to do something about it to change it. You have to be able to laugh about it, otherwise it just consumes you. So my friend and I, we always joke that I've had the miscarriages for her and for me. So I've done her the biggest favour, because she never has to experience any suffering, because I've had all of that for her. Which is our little friendship thing, I suppose. It's a strange thing. But one thing that I thought that really kind of pushed me to start talking about this openly is that, I was sat thinking about miscarriages and stuff one day, and then I just thought, well, there is no kind of real big reason why I'm having this. There is no underlying medical condition. So then you start to think, well, then, when you keep having more and more and more miscarriages, I'll just deal with them at home. I won't bother ringing the GP, because I know what I'm doing with them now. So I don't bother to go into hospital anymore. Not necessarily a dramatic one. Every single one is completely different. So if obviously it's a really big dramatic one, I go to hospital, but usually they're not. I just thought, well, there must be a lot of other women out there that are like me, that have this situation where they're having so many miscarriages, they can have children. Like, it's proven, they have a child, they have 2 or 3, but they want to have more, and it's just not happening. They keep going through this miscarriage, but there's no medical reason for it. So then you kind of get to the point, well, and if I'm not going to the GP anymore, I'll just deal with this at home. Then you sort of stop telling your friends and family, because there's only so many words of sympathy they can respond to you with. My mum, bless her, she probably doesn't know that we're up to 6 or more now. She probably thinks it's around 4-ish until she hears this podcast. She'll be quite cross with me, I think. But I'm a strong woman, and I don't want to have to keep going to people and say, oh yeah, how do you tell them, oh yeah, I had another miscarriage last week? What are people going to say anymore? There've been so many. With your first couple, it's a big thing. And now it's just I sound blasé about it. So how are the people going to sound? What are they going to come back to me with? I thought, yeah, how can I go about telling them? I feel I'm at a loss on how to communicate that to people. I feel like I don't need to tell people anymore. People don't need that information in their lives. You know, everyone's having a lot of different, you know, everyone's having a difficult time at the moment. So, you know, I said, oh yeah, you know, I had another miscarriage. You know, go tell my cousin I had another miscarriage. What's he going to say? Oh, sorry to hear about that. Oops. Oh well. You know, I don't know. Mentally, you just get to a point with it where I can't push past this anymore. But I think there must be so many other women out there in this situation who just stopped talking to people about it, stopped telling people, stopped announcing it. You know, every time that you get a positive pregnancy test, you're like, yes, it's exciting, but also you think, oh, well, it's inevitable. You know, I'm going to lose it. You know, more often than not, I do. So I just think, well, there are other people out there, right, in this situation, and who are they talking to? What are they doing? I don't know. I'm interested. You know, I kind of want to open up the field and be like, how do other people deal with this? You know, when you've had so many, but there's no medical reason, then how do you keep going? Do you just keep trying and keep having miscarriages? Do you? And is there a point when you say, no, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to change it up. You know, we're going to look at adoption or surrogacy or something. Like, when is that turning point? You know, I'm kind of interested because I feel like I've done the physical miscarriage thing now. I've done that. I know that inside out. I know the whole thing about it. But then what happens next? I don't know. And I'm kind of interested in getting in contact with some other people out there who are in the same situation as me and kind of starting up a community. Maybe there's one out there already that I have not found. I don't know what the answer is, but what my message is to people is that it is totally normal. It is horrible. It's the most horrible thing. But it is the most, it sounds awful, but it is a very natural process. You know, I'm not doing anything to my body to make this baby like not survive. So therefore it is a very natural process. And you get to a point with it where you think, well, and this is the intention, right? This is what is supposed to happen, because it keeps happening so much, because you spend so much of your life fighting it, saying, no, you know, it's wrong, what's happening to me is wrong, it's not fair. And then you get to a point, well, this is the way it's supposed to be, because it's such a reoccurring pattern. This is the way my life is supposed to go. And you can either let it consume you, or you can rise above it and stand on top of it and use it as your platform and your pedestal to define you in the most positive way that it ever could. And that's what I've chosen to do, because there was a point when it was just going to drown me, and I just couldn't see a way out of it. You know, I remember being sat in our downstairs loo, which is the smallest toilet in the world, and I just found out that I was having another miscarriage, and I didn't tell my other half or anything. I went and I sat on the toilet, and then I just curled myself up into a ball in the dark, and I just sat there and cried. And I must have been there for about 20 minutes, half an hour before Adam started looking for me. And I just retreated to the smallest place that I could, and just made myself the smallest little person that I could. And I just didn't know what to do. You know, I just thought, this can't be happening again. I was fighting it. I was saying, this shouldn't be happening again. Why is it happening? I don't want it to happen. It's not fair. You know, that little 6-year-old girl in my head was saying, it's not fair. It's not fair. You know, I'd stop it. I've not done anything for this. You know, I try. You know, I'm a good citizen. You know, I'm a really kind person. I project love and happiness out there. You know, I do yoga. You know, I'm a very holistic person. Why is this happening to me? I only ever put goodness out there. But now I think, you know, it's happening to me because I am a strong person, and I can take it, and I can use it to, oh, sorry, my screen just went off there. I can use it to, like I said before, I'm not going to get consumed by it. I can stand on top of it now, and use it as my platform to shout from, because I'm at a stage with it where I've made my peace. And I think that's the key thing, really. I'm not in that mindset of it's not fair anymore. Come out of that. And now I'm really interested in what's next, because I don't know, where do you go from here? I don't know where I go from here. You know, I want Alf to have a sibling, but I don't know what the answer is.
Before you were pregnant with Alf, had the miscarriages been all within like like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks after the pregnancy test, or were they kind of different? The reason I'm asking that question,
usually, no, go on.
the reason I'm asking that is, what kind of things did you do once you were pregnant with Alf and you'd gone past those dates, as it were?
Well, usually my miscarriages, they either happen very, very early, so maybe a week, 2 weeks after the pregnancy test, or they will happen, really annoyingly, just before your 12-week safe date. And so the 12 people who don't know, the 12-week safe date, basically the medical people say once you hit kind of at 12, 13, 14 weeks, you're pretty much in the safe zone, you know, where miscarriage, where the risk of miscarriage drops dramatically. And a lot of mine have been about 3 days off that golden date where you think I'm going to be safe if I can make it to that point. And I would just start to get excited about it. I would just start to let my imagination cling to the idea, just very, very slightly, you know, start thinking about the possibilities of it. And then it would all get taken away from me. But you ask a very good question in what did I do, potentially what did I do a bit differently after those dates with Alf? And the answer is absolutely nothing. I did nothing, mainly probably because I quit my job. That is one thing I did. I got pregnant with Alfred and I quit my job, and then I really did do nothing. I just sat down and watched TV because I just thought I'm just not risking it. And yeah, that's the only thing that I did. And whether that had a big impact or not, I don't know, because, you know, I don't have anything else to compare it to. So, you know, Alfred could have been a success regardless or not if I'd have stayed in my career or if I'd have left it. We will never know. But I've had miscarriages since having Alfred, and still not having like a job per se, you know, going to an office and being in employment, and I've still had failed pregnancies since. So I don't think it is the fact that I quit my job, although I did have a very stressful job beforehand, so it was definitely the right thing for me to do.
Just to get away from the stress.
Yeah, I couldn't. Yeah. This, because the stress has a huge impact. You know, a lot of people think that stress is just a mental thing, but it's massively a physical thing. You know, all of that mental anguish and tension and stuff manifests itself in, you know, in your muscles, and, you know, you can be holding on, gripping in your shoulders and well, everywhere. You know, you hold it all in as a physical tension. So yeah, I was very pleased that I did quit my job. It was a tough decision to make, because I had a career that was really going places. To be honest, I was really going somewhere with it. But I just thought, well, you know, what's the point in having a really great job and a career if I just keep having these miscarriages? And if having a child really is what I want, then I weighed it up, and actually the career didn't mean anything when it was held up against having my own family. I just gave it up in a heartbeat. I just thought I couldn't care less. You know, I'd worked 12 years to get to where I'd got in my career, and I just thought, no, I just drop it. I genuinely didn't care. I didn't shed a tear. I never regretted it at all. Yeah, because now, you know, I don't know whether it means that I now have Alfred or not. But
you have a lot less stress in your life, that's for sure.
Yeah, and more of a quality of life as well, because, you know, I'm not tied down to these kind of 9 to 5 hours or anything like that. You know, I can just do what I like, which is lovely. It's something quite liberating about just quitting your job. I'd highly recommend it. Um, only if you've got a fallback option. Obviously, don't just start quitting your job. That would be awful advice, wouldn't it?
And we were
But yeah,
talking.
I don't regret it at all.
We were talking just before we went live about your little boy, how he's just turned 2, and the house is now too small for him.
Yeah, he's got big ambitious plans on the world already, as little Alfred. Mainly involving slides and swings and dinosaurs and Peppa Pig. They're all very close to his heart at the moment. Yeah, he's very much an outdoorsy kid. He just loves being outside in the garden, running around on a field, in nature, plants, soil, everything. He just loves it. If you keep him inside, he'll just go crazy. He'll just start getting really angry and quite cross. So I just need to open up that back door and then just let him run free.
But we were talking again about sort of your passion for gardening. So I'm guessing that he's out in the garden with you a lot as well, isn't he? Helping being the operative word, in the garden.
Yeah, and he loves to help. Yeah, hopefully this time next year he will actually be able to do an element of constructive help. But at the moment it is just destruction. But he's happy with that, so that's fine. But yeah, I have learnt over the last couple of years that gardening is a lot more than what I thought it was. I thought it was just, poking around some plants when you're a bit cold and it's drizzly, and poke at some soil or, trim some leaves or something. I had absolutely no concept of it. And then we bought a house where we had a little garden. And then it was an awful mess when we moved in. There was 10-foot high weeds and all sorts. So we stripped it right back and we kind of then designed and created our own lovely little garden space. And there's something so therapeutic about it. I didn't give it credit at all. And I definitely should have done it a lot sooner. I remember one time I had this cracking headache. I'd had it for about 2-3 days. Paracetamol wouldn't touch it. Nothing would touch it. And I was just like, oh, it was awful. It was debilitating. And then I just thought, right, I need to go outside and start weeding around the plants. And I know my dahlia was getting eaten alive by slugs and it had some black fly on it and all sorts of little problems. So I'm just going to go out there and potter for half an hour because this headache was just really getting me down. And I was, I allowed myself half an hour. And of course, about 2 hours later, Adam was sort of calling for me to come back in again. And then he said, oh, how's your headache, love? I said, what? I had completely forgotten that I even had this headache for 2-3 days, and it had just disappeared. I don't know when it went. It went at some point in the gardening, obviously, but I wasn't aware of it at all. It just sort of melted away. And so I do, going to sound a bit hippie here, but I genuinely believe that gardening has a level of healing quality to it. I don't, it's not going to, have kind of like real medical implications or anything, but I think the mentality that it gives you, you can't rush gardening, right? Because nature happens in its own time zone. It has its own little clock, and it doesn't care if you're in a rush. It forces you to take life at a slower pace. And I think that's so important at the moment because, we're all busy rushing around doing things all the time, very, very busy people. I think a lot of the time we're actually busy doing not a lot at all. And when you get out into the garden, you can't rush, you have to take it at a slow pace. And it forces you to look to the future as well, which is something that got me through these miscarriages and the troubled times that I've had, is that, when you plant a seed or a bulb, you're planting it, you're caring for it, you're looking after it. But you have to project your mind forwards in a positive light to when that's going to start shooting and when it's going to start to grow, which when you're in the stages of grief or struggling or going through any kind of mental struggle, really, that's a really, really powerful tool that until you're in that dark place, you can't give it the credit that it deserves until you're there and you're in it and you experience it really. But yeah, I'm a massive advocate for gardening. And even if you don't have a garden, lovely potted plants, they need a lot of care as well, a lot of care and attention. And there's so much you can do with gardening. I've hardly even just scratched the surface. But I would highly recommend it to anyone. And if you're a foodie and you just live in a flat and you don't have a garden, just get a little herb box, and just you get a little mister, and you can mist your plants, give them a little simulated rain, little rain shower, and wipe the leaves down. There's a lot to be said for wiping the leaves of your house plants, just to get the dust off them and things. You take your time, allow yourself, I don't know, half an hour to go around all of your plants in your house or whatever, carefully wiping the leaves. It's a very therapeutic thing if you go at it with the mindset of, I'm not going to rush this. I'm just going to take my time and enjoy it. It's one of those repetitive tasks that everyone's kind of into at the minute. There's colouring books that you get for adults and those mindfulness things that you get. Gardening is one of those, but kind of on steroids in a way, in organic steroids, because you just have to go out there and get your little fertilizer out, start digging up little bits of compost, and it's the most therapeutic thing, getting your hands in the earth, touching it, something tactile. It works for every sense that you have, all of them. I can't speak highly enough about it.
You said something a couple of minutes ago about it not being very medical, but actually, I can't remember the phrase now, but in some parts, I know in a couple of surgeries in London and elsewhere, they're actually now prescribing physical activity like gardening instead of giving out antidepressant medication, as an example. Yeah.
I had not heard of that. That is fantastic.
There's a phrase which I
can't... It's absolutely the right thing to do, because we don't want to throw more problems at a problem. I know antidepressants for the first couple of weeks, some of them, not all of them at all by any means, but I know some antidepressants can make you more suicidal in their first kind of couple of weeks of you starting to take them. So they kind of backtrack before they make you better. I just think it's madness. Like, we don't need to be prescribing these things a lot. I know some cases absolutely they are required, but a lot of it can be prevented by gardening or physical exercise, mental exercise. And gardening is a lovely marriage of the two. And just being outside in nature, there's a lot to be said for people's happiness, just general overall happiness. I know there's a lot of studies that have been carried out about just being outside, being in nature, gardening and stuff, and how that affects those different parts of our brain and what all of that means. And it was all positive stuff that came out of it. I'm not going to start quoting it because that's really not my place and I would make a mess of it. But if you're interested, just go and look it up because I think it's absolutely amazing.
I know gardening being out in nature is definitely beneficial, but gardening is just brilliant because you've mentioned it several times. Things like you're grounding yourself, you're reconnecting with the earth and with the soil. You can't rush. Even if you've got a massive patch that you need to dig over manually, you're going to be, unconscious in half an hour if you go like a mad thing. So you've got to be considerate and take your time. And there's always things to do. Weeding and planting and designing, thinking about wildlife, having maybe a little wildlife patch in the corner, not being too tidy. It is people used to think, gardening is just for old people, but no, not at all. It is such a brilliant thing. And I mean, I don't have a garden at the moment, and I miss it so much not having a garden. But my flat is full of house plants. I've got my own spider plants. I'm looking at my massive money plant in the back there by the front, and I love having them. Yeah, and it's just sprouting, it's gone ballistic. There's loads and loads of little ones. I've got one here. Look at this.
Oh my
That's
goodness.
that's the main one. The other one over there is always got a baby I haven't seen, a little shoot there at the front. And if I turn it
Oh,
round,
fantastic.
can you see that one? Right there, look.
That is, oh my
It's tiny.
wow. Yeah, I see it. Yeah,
I've got one of these in every room in the house, in the flat.
Yeah, but they improve our quality of air as well. You know, there's so much to be said for it. Yeah, I'm just the biggest advocate. I've done a complete 180 basically in the last 3 years on
360.
what my attitude to gardening is. You know, if I ever put the TV on and Gardener's World was on, you know, I'd sit there and I'd scoff. Like, oh, look at Monty Don in his perfect garden. Ugh. And I'd just scoff and I was like, oh, you know, turn the channel, you know, it'll be all the grannies watching that. I'm not interested. And actually, what a load of rubbish I was talking about. Absolute rubbish. I should never have just poo-pooed Monty Don. I think he's fantastic now. You know, I'm watching him, I'm waiting because there's a new series of Gardener's World going to start soon because I follow him on Twitter now. Yeah, now I just think it's absolutely fantastic. Yeah, I can't speak highly enough of it. We're actually moving house very soon, and one of the main reasons was to get a much bigger garden, and it is massive, the garden that we're moving to. So I'm very excited.
Oh wow, that's gonna be great fun for you, designing that, and you know, sort of how you're going to lay it out, what it's going to look like, and
It's
the plants
huge.
and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm gonna have to sketch it out and do a few different plans for it because it's massive. But that's another lovely project to get me through. And you know, even if I feel like because I have created these hobbies, interests, passions, I suppose they kind of it comes under all of those really as one in regards to gardening. And you know, I do a bit of sketching. I'm by no way, I'm not very good, but I enjoy it. And because I found these pastimes, I now feel like that if I have more miscarriages, I'm not gonna, obviously it's gonna be awful, but really in the grand scheme of things, I know I'm gonna be okay. I know I'll be fine. And I think that comes with a bit of age and experience as well. You know, that I know that life goes on. I know I will be all right. I'm going to get out the other end of it. Everything will turn out as it should be in the end. And I have complete faith in that, which is why it's given me the confidence to speak out. And kind of this is my first time ever speaking on a public platform about what I've been through. I know a lot of my family and friends are going to be quite shocked when they hear it, because they'll just think, oh, why didn't you tell me? I can't believe you've been through all of this and you didn't tell me about it. But I just think, well, what is there to say? You know, what I don't want to ruin their day. You know, but sometimes that's how it feels. You know, I don't want to tell someone my bad news because I'm all right. I'm fine. I've coped. You know, why go and bring someone else down and make them, you know, potentially they might worry about me or all sorts of things, you know, and they really don't need to, because through this process, I've discovered that I can always fall back on my garden, and it will always be there for me. It will always need my attention in some form or other. And I can now go out there with Alfred and teach him about gardening. And he's got a little wheelbarrow and a little watering can. He loves it.
My kids went through all that, watering cans, spent more time watering each other than actual plants, but that's another story.
Yeah.
So listen,
we definitely have a lot of that.
Have you turned your passion for gardening into a little kind of business?
Yeah. So at the start of lockdown, there was a lot of obviously an awful amount of death surrounding us, personally and in the news and everywhere. It's a terrifying time, really, really scary. So, you know, I turned to my gardening even more, which I know a lot of people did, and continue to do so, which is one of the good things that I think have come out of this pandemic. But it also got me thinking about gardening and people passing away and stuff. And I was chatting to my dad one day and saying, you know, Dad, I'm really bored being a stay-at-home mum now. I love it, but I need something else in my life. I feel like I need to challenge my brain a lot more than what I was doing. I felt like my IQ was dropping dramatically. You know, with every episode of Peppa Pig that kept coming on, I could see my IQ literally diminishing as I was watching more of it. it's like kind of hours of Peppa Pig versus IQ. The balance was definitely tipping. And so, I was chatting to my dad and I was saying, I want to start up my own business, Dad. What do you think I should do? My dad's very entrepreneurial and has a very open mind about business and stuff. So I always do value his opinions on that topic. So, I came up with a couple of ideas on what I could do. And he was like, no, don't bother doing that, Sarah. That's an awful idea. Some of them was, maybe I could be a painter and decorator. No, Sarah, don't be a painter and decorator. I don't want you up ladders all day. That's ridiculous. Okay, I won't do that. So, all right then, Dad, what should I do? So he thought about it for a bit, and then he came back to me and he said, I've got a really great business idea for you, love. All right, what? Go on then. What is it? And then his opening gambit. It was quite funny, actually. He was sat there with a big smile on his face, and he said, right, so just imagine if you could create life after death, Sarah, what would you say? And I said, well, I'm certainly interested. And now, okay, so my business is, I don't create life after death. I'm not, I'm not into that. But what it is that through a lot of research and trial and error, I've come up with a specialist compost mix, like a growing medium, a soil mix, where I can now successfully grow plants, bushes, trees or shrubs with the cremated ashes of a loved one, someone who's passed away. Because cremated ash is quite toxic to the environment, quite harmful. It's very high on the pH scale. It's very high in sodium and a lot of other stuff, which creates a very harmful environment to try and successfully grow a plant or a tree or anything like that. It makes it very, very difficult for the plant to survive. So I was looking into it. I did a lot of research, a lot of work on the different mix, on how I could get this to work. Spoke to some people at our local horticultural college, and I spoke to them about the formula, and they said, yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. That would definitely work. So I thought, well, that's fantastic, great. So I set up a business now. It's called Tree of Life. I'm really, really pleased with it, because it brings a lot of things together for me. It's very environmentally friendly. Everything we send out can be composted or recycled or biodegradable. Even the tape we use on our packaging boxes, it's special tape that breaks down and is recyclable or compostable, even, in your garden compost bin. And it's lovely because there's something about, creating that memorial. You can choose your own plant or tree or shrub that reflects the personality of the person that you've lost, that has the vibrancy that they had. Maybe it was their favorite plant, or there's something about the color of the flower or something that just reminds you of them. Or, maybe it's a big strong tree that you want to plant because that person had such strong connections to you. Or it works on so many beautiful levels. And it kind of harks back to what I said a little bit earlier about when you're really are in the depths of grief and you're struggling so much. It's something unfortunately I can relate to all too well. It forces you to look towards the future, and that's what a big powerful thing for me is. That's what really helped get me through some dark times, planting a little sapling or something like that with the cremated ashes of someone who has passed away, and then nurturing that plant, the ongoing maintenance that needs, building a bond with that plant, because we do build bonds with our plants as we're caring for them every year, pruning them back, trimming them, deadheading, all, feeding. There's a lot of maintenance that's required, and this becomes a labor of love. And I just think there's something so beautiful about that, so special and so reassuring. If you've lost someone and they leave a huge hole in our lives, right, when they go, and the hole never really goes away. And so, maybe it gets a bit smaller over time as other people come into our lives, but it's always going to be there. And so I like to think that you can kind of replace that hole or kind of fill it a little bit partially with the care and maintenance of the plant or tree that you've chosen. You know, it's completely personal. And I also do small kits where you, if you don't have a garden, you know, you can do a potted plant or an indoor plant in a large container, you know, which I think is also a bit more reassuring, because it's often been a concern for people, and they think, what if I move house? You know, I'm about to move house, and I think, oh, you know, I don't want to leave all my plants here. What should I do? Especially, you know, if they've been planted with the ashes of a loved one, you think, well, all the soil around that then becomes very precious and sacred, and you want to keep it all together. Well, then you can just use an indoor plant. You know, if you don't have a garden or anything like that, it doesn't matter. They don't have to be outside in huge open fields or open spaces. No, not at all. You can buy a lovely plant, a potted plant, and have a lovely indoor memorial as well.
Where can people find out more about this? I think it's a brilliant idea, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Thanks very much. The website is thetreeoflife.uk, and all of our information's on there. We're on Twitter as well, which is the Tree of Life UK. And that's where you can find us.
Instagram as well, presumably?
I know I'm not on Instagram yet. I just feel like I don't have that many pictures.
Okay, you're building up
because it's a very visual media based thing, as Instagram, obviously. Yeah, because I'm selling a specialist growing medium, it's not the most interesting product to physically look at. It's, you know, it's not a beautiful,
it's the result of the product, isn't it, really?
Product. Yeah, exactly. It's not so much the product that I'm sort of pushing, really. It's what you get from it. That's the important bit for me, and I can't yet capture that moment in a picture. I'm trying on it. I am working. I'm in contact with our customers and stuff, trying to get, you know, some photographs, you know, little short videos or things back from them. I'll just have them planting or maintaining or any stuff like that. So I'm starting to build up a library of it, but there's not a need for Instagram yet, and social media can spiral as well. So yeah, no, not Instagram yet, but potentially in future, yes.
Right, one last question, which I kind of ask all my guests. If you could go back in time and change anything, would you, and why? So it's either yes or no, and the reason why.
A couple of years ago, I'd have said yes, but today I'm going to say no. I wouldn't change anything, because every action that I've taken in my life, or every action that has been imposed upon me by other people, has had some kind of slight effect on me, and there's therefore slightly altered the path of life that I have taken. And even the worst things that have happened to me, I've had some horrific things. Everyone has, you know, life isn't always fun, but no, I wouldn't change anything now, because I wouldn't be living the life that I'm living today, and I love it. I love every second of my life right now, and I wouldn't change anything. All the bad stuff that's happened, I keep it all, because it means that I get this, and this is my prize.
On that note, thank you so much indeed for your time this afternoon. So I really appreciate it. It's been lovely talking to you. Thanks very much. Speak to you soon.
You too. Thank you, Paul. My
Bye.
pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Bye.